The bouquet hit the polished oak floor like a gunshot in the silence, petals scattering across the faded runner like blood from a fresh wound. Skylar Hayes stood there in the half-light of the church vestibule, her travel-worn suitcase still gripped in one hand, the other trembling as if it might reach out to rewrite the scene unfolding beyond the arched doors. "Ilara," she whispered to the empty air, the name a blade twisting in her chest, because there, at the altar of St. Augustine's in Monroe, Louisiana, her wife of 7 years was gliding down the aisle on the arm of Monroe Voss, the woman Skylar had buried in her past like a fever dream. Skylar had flown in early from that endless conference in Portland, Oregon, chasing the ghost of a text message that had come too late. "Miss you more than words. Home soon." She'd imagined surprising Ilara with takeout from that hole-in-the-wall Cajun place they both pretended was better than anything in the city, maybe a bottle of cheap bourbon to chase away the weeks apart. The drive from Shreveport Airport had been a blur of bayou fog and radio static, the kind of late-afternoon haze that made the world feel like it was holding its breath. Monroe wasn't home. Not really. Not after Skylar's Ohio roots had pulled her west for college, and kept her there with dreams of something bigger than factory whistles and family silences. But Ilara had roots here, deep entangled in the red clay, in a family estate that whispered of old money and older grudges. They'd met in New Orleans during Mardi Gras, two women dodging beads and bourbon-fueled regrets, and somehow, against the odds of their worlds, they'd built a life stitched from compromises. Skylar's freelance graphic design gigs funding Ilara's quiet volunteer work at the local literacy center. Their small clapboard house on the edge of town a fragile bridge between Yankee skepticism and Southern grace. Now, as the organ swelled into that saccharine hymn Skylar could never remember the words to, she pushed through the doors just enough to see it all. Ilara in ivory silk that hugged her like a second skin, her dark curls pinned with jasmine from the garden they'd planted together, her smile radiant and rehearsed, the kind that hid the storms they'd weathered. And beside her, not as a bridesmaid but as the goddamn bride. Or wait, no, the veil was on Monroe, that sharp-jawed ghost from Skylar's Vanderbilt days, her blonde hair cropped short now, suit tailored to perfection, eyes locked on Ilara with a hunger Skylar recognized all too well. The congregation, Ilara's cousins from Baton Rouge, the church ladies with their pearl clutches, a smattering of Skylar's half-hearted invites from Portland, turned heads like dominoes falling, whispers rippling through the pews like smoke. Skylar's knees buckled, but she caught herself on the doorframe, the wood cool and unforgiving under her palm. This wasn't a dream. The scent of lilies and candle wax was too real. The murmur of "bless her heart," already forming on lips painted coral. She'd known Monroe was back in town. Ilara had mentioned it offhand, a casual old friend from your college circle, helping with the fundraiser, but this was the kind of betrayal that poets wrote elegies for, the kind that made you question if love was ever anything more than a shared illusion. Skylar's mind reeled back to the night she'd proposed, on the porch swing in their yard, fireflies winking like conspirators as she slipped the ring onto Ilara's finger. "We're rewriting the rules," she'd said, voice thick with the weight of it all. Their family's quiet disapprovals, the sideways glances at the grocery store in Monroe where rainbows were still whispered about like scandals. Ilara had laughed then, tears in her eyes pulling Skylar close. "With you anything." But rules were made to be bent, weren't they? Or broken? Skylar forced her legs to move, slipping into the back pew like a shadow, her heart hammering a rhythm that drowned out the vows being exchanged up front. Monroe's voice, low and steady, carried, "In the quiet hours when the world tries to tell us who we should be, I choose you, the fire, the fight, the grace that defies every damn expectation." Ilara's response was softer, a murmur lost to the swell of applause, but Skylar saw the way her hand lingered on Monroe's arm, the way their fingers intertwined like they'd rehearsed this 1,000 times in stolen afternoons. The ceremony blurred into a haze of handshakes and cake slices in the fellowship hall, Skylar hovering on the periphery, a ghost in her rumpled blouse and jeans, nursing a plastic cup of punch that tasted like regret. She waited until the crowd thinned, until Ilara slipped away to the bride's room, their old guest bath at the family plantation house, rented out for the occasion, and followed, the gravel crunching under her boots like accusations. The door creaked open to reveal Ilara at the mirror, adjusting a necklace Skylar didn't recognize, pearls that gleamed like lies. "Skylar." Ilara's reflection froze, color draining from her face. She turned slowly, the dress pooling around her like spilled milk. You're early. I wasn't. God, I didn't think. You didn't think? Skylar echoed, the words flat, stripped of the fury she felt boiling under her skin. She dropped her suitcase by the door, the thud echoing in the small space. Or you didn't care. Which is it, Alara? Because I just watched you promise forever to the woman who left me bleeding on a dorm floor 20 years ago. Alara's eyes, those deep hazel pools Skylar had drowned in 100 times, filled with something that looked like sorrow but felt like evasion. It's not that simple. Monroe. She's been here, Skylar. Through the cancer scare last year when you were buried in deadlines. Through Mama's decline, the estate falling apart. She understands this place, the weight of it. You always said you wanted me to be free. Free. Skylar's laugh was bitter, a sound she'd never made before in this house. Free to gut me like this? We built a life, Alara. Vows. Rings. The quiet mornings where I'd make coffee black the way you like it, and you'd read me those god-awful romance novels just to see me roll my eyes. Was that all smoke? Alara stepped closer, her hand reaching out, but Skylar flinched back, the air between them crackling like a storm front. I love you. Still do, in ways that scare me. But Monroe, she's the one who fits the mold here. The family, the town. They see her and nod, no questions. With you. It's always been whispers, judgments. Remember the barbecue last summer? Your hand in mine. And old Mr. Thibodeau crossing himself like we'd summoned the devil. Skylar remembered. The heat of the grill, the way Alara's grip had tightened, a silent apology. But she'd pushed it down like always, for the sake of this fragile piece. So you trade me for approval? For a woman who ghosted me because her daddy's oil money couldn't stomach a daughter-loving woman? Monroe Voss, who swore she'd burn the world for me, and then vanished the second Vanderbilt's alumni board, raised an eyebrow. The door swung open then. Monroe filling the frame like a verdict. She was older now, lines etched around her eyes from years of boardrooms and bourbon, but the tilt of her chin was the same, arrogant, unyielding. Skylar Hayes. Been a minute. Her voice was smooth, laced with that Louisiana drawl that used to melt Skylar's resolve. Now it just curdled her stomach. Save it, Skylar said, turning away from the mirror, from the woman who'd once been her everything and now stood as a stranger in a wedding gown. You two deserve each other. Liars and cowards, arm in arm. She grabbed her suitcase and stormed out, the plantation's grand hall blurring past. Portraits of stern ancestors watching with painted disdain. Outside, the November rain had started, turning the drive to mud. Skylar slid into her rental car, hands shaking on the wheel, and peeled out toward the highway, the church's steeple shrinking in the rearview like a bad memory. But memories didn't drive. They rode shotgun, whispering what if and why not me. The road to Shreveport unwound like a vein, pulsing with the low hum of tires on wet asphalt. Skylar's phone buzzed on the passenger seat, Alara's name flashing like a flare. She let it ring once, twice, until voicemail swallowed it whole. Instead, she pulled over at a roadside diner, the neon sign flickering Bayou Brew against the gathering dusk. Inside, the air was thick with grease and grief. Truckers hunched over plates of fried catfish, a jukebox crooning Patsy Cline like it knew her soul. She ordered black coffee, strong enough to strip the varnish from lies, and stared at the rain-streaked window, her reflection fractured and faint. Skylar Hayes, 32, going on ancient, the girl from Ohio's rusting mills who chased art degrees and open skies, only to land here in the heart of Dixie, loving a woman whose world demanded she choose between heart and heritage. It wasn't just betrayal. It was the slow poison of compromise, the way Alara's smiles had grown thinner over the years, her touches hesitant in public, her eyes drifting to the family Bible on the shelf like it held the answers. Flashback tugged at her then, unbidden. Their first Christmas in Monroe, 3 years into marriage. Skylar had strung lights on the magnolia tree, defying the chill, while Alara baked pecan pies from her grandmother's recipe. They danced in the kitchen to Nina Simone, bodies close, the world outside forgotten. This is us. Alara had murmured against her neck. Against all of it. But even then the cracks had shown, Alara's mother calling from the big house, voice laced with that genteel venom. Darling, the ladies' auxiliary is asking questions. Can't you be discreet? Discreet. The word had lodged in Skylar's throat like a fishbone. She'd swallowed it for love, for the way Alara's laugh could light up the gloomiest bayou night. But love wasn't a shield against the town's undercurrent. The way Monroe's return had stirred it all up. Monroe Voss, heiress to Voss Drilling, the kind of name that bought silence and second chances. Skylar had loved her fiercely at 19, in the shadowed corners of Vanderbilt's library, stealing kisses between lectures on Southern lit irony. Monroe had been fire, bold, unapologetic, promising they'd run to California where the sun didn't judge. Then her father's heart attack, the family empire teetering, and Monroe had chosen legacy over love, leaving Skylar with a Dear John letter and a hollow ache that echoed for years. Until Alara, steady Alara, with her volunteer shifts and quiet faith, who'd seen past Skylar's armor to the girl afraid of being left again. They'd married in a civil ceremony in New Orleans, no fanfare, just them and a justice of the peace who winked like he got it. Monroe had been a footnote, dusted off in late-night confessions over wine. She was my wild phase, Skylar had joked. Alara had laughed, but her eyes had held something unreadable, a shadow Skylar now cursed herself for ignoring. The coffee cooled untouched as the diner emptied. The waitress, a wiry woman with tattooed forearms, sliding a slice of pie her way. On the house, hon? Looks like you need it. Skylar nodded thanks, fork piercing the crust like it was Alara's resolve. The sweetness cloyed, turning to ash on her tongue. What now? Drive back to Portland? Bury herself in client briefs and bar tabs? Or turn around, demand answers, fight for the scraps of what they'd had? Her phone buzzed again. Not Alara, but a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Skylar's thumb hovered, then deleted it. Talk? There were no words left for this, only the raw scrape of truth against bone. She paid and stepped into the rain, the downpour washing her face clean of tears she hadn't realized were falling. The highway called, a black ribbon toward nowhere, but Skylar knew better. Nowhere was just another name for home when home betrayed you. Back in the car, engine rumbling like distant thunder, she punched in the address for the Voss estate, a sprawling antebellum relic on the Washita River's bend. Not to beg, not to accuse, but to understand. Because if Alara could rewrite their story with Monroe's pen, Skylar deserved the final edit. The wipers slashed at the windshield, back and forth like her mind. Slash the pane, reveal the road ahead. Monroe, Louisiana, faded in the mirrors, but its ghosts clung tighter than fog. The Voss plantation loomed like a southern Gothic fever, white columns scarred by hurricanes past, Spanish moss draping the oaks like funeral veils. Skylar parked on the oystershell drive, gravel popping under tires and killed the engine. Lights glowed from the veranda, laughter spilling out like spilled champagne. The reception in full swing, Alara's relatives toasting to unions that looked right on paper. She slipped around the side, through the rose arbor they'd planted for privacy, thorns snagging her sleeve like warnings ignored. From the garden shadows she watched. Alara on the porch swing, Monroe's arm around her shoulders, their heads bent close in that intimate tilt Skylar knew too well. The air hummed with cicadas and string lights, the river murmuring secrets below. You think she'll hate me forever? Alara's voice carried, soft, laced with that vulnerability Skylar had once claimed as her own. Monroe's chuckle was low, reassuring. Skylar's tougher than she lets on. Always was. But this, it's mercy, darlin'. For both of you. She deserves a life without the constant pull of this place. Mercy. The word landed like a slap. Skylar's breath caught, fists clenching at her sides. Mercy to discard her like yesterday's news? She stepped forward, boots snapping a twig, and the swing stilled. Alara's head snapped up, eyes wide in the lantern light. Skylar! Save the speeches. Skylar emerged from the dark, rain dripping from her hair, voice steady despite the quake inside. I came for truth, not pity. How long, Alara? How long have you been playing house with my past, while I was out there building our future? Alara rose, the silk of her dress whispering against the boards, Monroe unfolding behind her like a sentinel. It started innocent. Coffee after the fundraiser. Talks about old times, Vanderbilt, you. She asked about us and I told her everything. The loneliness when you're gone. The way Mama's illness made me question if love was enough against all this. She gestured vaguely at the house, the land, the invisible chains of expectation. Everything, Skylar repeated, the word hollow. Including the nights we fought over it? The therapy sessions in Shreveport, where you swore you'd choose us over the ghosts. Monroe interjected then, stepping forward, hands raised in that placating way that used to disarm Skylar. This isn't about erasing you, Hayes. Alara needs stability here, the estate, the legacy. You know as well as I do, Monroe ain't kind to outsiders. Especially ones like us. Like us. Skylar's gaze locked on Monroe, the old fire flickering. You mean women who love women? Or just the ones who run when the going gets southern? The air thickened, charged with the unsaid. Their shared history crashing against the present like waves on the levee. Monroe's jaw tightened, but her eyes softened. A flicker of the girl who'd once traced constellations on Skylar's skin. I ran because I had to. Daddy's will, the board, they'd have stripped it all. But you. You were the one thing I couldn't forget. When I came back, saw Alara carrying that weight alone. It felt like fate handing me a second chance. Not just with her, but to make it right with you. Right. Skylar's voice cracked, the dam breaking. By stealing my wife? By turning our life into your redemption arc. Alara moved then, closing the distance, her hand finding Skylar's arm. Cold fingers on warmer skin. It's not stealing if I walked into it. I was lost, Sky. The cancer, Mama's death, the way the town looks at us like we're a phase. Monroe offers a way to stay, to honor what they expect, without losing myself entirely. The words hung, heavy as humidity, and Skylar pulled away, the touch burning now. Honor. That's what this is. Betraying the one person who saw you whole, not in pieces to fit their puzzle. Tears tracked down Alara's cheeks, smudging the careful makeup. I never meant to hurt you. But staying with you, it was killing me slowly. The whispers, the isolation. With her I can breathe. Skylar looked between them, the woman she'd loved and the ghost who'd shaped her scars. The river rushed below, indifferent, and for a moment she envied its freedom. Then breathe, she said finally, voice a whisper carried on the wind. But know this, mercy cuts both ways. I'm done holding your chains. She turned, walking back through the arbor, thorns drawing blood she didn't feel. The party noise faded, replaced by the steady patter of rain, and Skylar drove into the night, the Voss lights shrinking to pinpricks. Portland waited, a city of reinvention, but first, she needed the miles to mourn. Days blurred into a haze of hotel rooms and highways, Skylar zigzagging south to New Orleans before turning north, chasing the Gulf salt air to cleanse the wound. She crashed with an old Vanderbilt friend, Lena, in a Garden District shotgun house, the kind with shotgun porches and ghosts in the attic. Lena didn't pry, just poured hurricanes and let Skylar talk when the liquor loosened her tongue, about Alara's laugh like wind chimes, Monroe's touch like wildfire, the way betrayal tasted like chicory coffee gone cold. You're free now, Lena said one sticky afternoon, as they wandered Jackson Square. Tarot readers hawking futures Skylar no longer trusted. That's the gift they didn't mean to give. Free. The word echoed, mocking. Freedom in a world that still measured love by its silence, by the nods from pearl clutchers in Monroe. Skylar had always been the outsider, the Ohio transplant with ink-stained fingers and dreams too big for bayous. Alara had grounded her, made her believe in roots. Now unmoored, she felt the pull of old wounds. Her mother's hushed its a phase skybug, the factory town's averted eyes when she'd come out at 17. But there, amid the jazz buskers and beignet sugar, something stirred. Not healing but hunger. For stories untold. For love's unapologetic. She texted Alara one last time. Papers in the mail. Be happy. Or try. The reply came hours later. I'm sorry. For everything. Monroe's message followed. You deserved better from the start. From me. Skylar deleted it, but the ache lingered, a bruise blooming into resolve. She flew home to Portland 2 weeks later, the plane's descent over evergreens a balm to her frayed edges. The freelance world waited. A new client in graphic novels, tales of queer heroes defying dragons. Skylar dove in, sketching heroines with Alara's eyes and Monroe's fire, their triumphs raw and real. Months passed in sketches and solitude until a package arrived. Alara's ring, wrapped in a note. I couldn't keep it. It belongs to the woman who taught me to fight. Skylar slipped it on, not as a chain but a talisman. One rainy evening, scrolling X for inspiration, she saw Monroe's post. A photo of the Voss estate, sold to a preservation trust, caption reading letting go to grow. Alara's account had gone quiet, but whispers from mutuals painted a picture: separation, Alara volunteering full-time at the center, finding her voice in board meetings where she advocated for queer youth. Skylar smiled, faint but true. Betrayal's sting had faded to scar. A reminder that love's true measure wasn't possession, but the courage to release. She poured bourbon, raised a glass to ghosts, and stepped onto her balcony, the city lights winking like fireflies. In the distance, the Willamette murmured, and for the first time Skylar breathed deep, free finally to write her own ending. The autumn leaves in Portland clung to branches like desperate lovers, reluctant to fall even as the wind howled its indifference. Skylar Hayes woke to the patter of rain on her loft window, the city skyline a gray smudge beyond the glass, and for a moment, she let herself pretend the ache in her chest was just another storm passing through. 7 months since Monroe, Louisiana, since the church doors and the scattered petals, and the scar tissue had thickened, but some mornings it itched like it remembered the blade. She rolled out of bed, feet hitting the cool hardwood, and padded to the kitchenette where coffee brewed on autopilot. The ring, Alara's ring, now hers alone, sat on the counter, catching the weak light like a dare. Skylar ignored it, pouring a mug black and strong, the bitterness a ritual anchor. Work waited. Revisions on the graphic novel Bayou Ghosts, her semi-autobiographical tale of two women tangled in southern vines, one clipping wings for the other's flight. The editor loved the rawness, the way Skylar wove betrayal into redemption without sugarcoating the bleed. "It's got that fried green tomatoes grit," he'd emailed, "but queerer, fiercer." Fiercer. Skylar smirked into her coffee, scrolling her phone for the Portland queer lit scene. Readings at Powell's, mixers at the Alberta Arts District. Isolation had its comforts, but lately, the quiet pressed in, whispering of empty barstools and unanswered invites. She typed a yes to a launch party that night, why not? And hit send before doubt could claw it back. The day unfolded in strokes of digital ink. Heroines with haunted eyes sketching escape routes from family manners, lovers parting under live oaks heavy with unspoken truths. By evening, Skylar dressed in jeans and a button-down soft as forgiveness, auburn hair loose and wild, and ventured into the drizzle. The venue was a converted warehouse, string lights casting warm pools amid exposed brick, the air humming with laughter and low conversations that felt like lifelines. She nursed a gin and tonic at the bar, nodding to acquaintances. A poet with blue hair, a novelist who'd optioned her short story for a web series. Then across the room, eyes met hers, warm brown framed by lashes like whispered secrets, belonging to a woman leaning against a bookshelf, book in hand, smile tentative but electric. Juniper Reed, the event's featured reader, 28 and all Oregon edges, freckles from Willamette summers, voice like falling leaves when she took the mic later, reading from River Runes, a collection of essays on queer becoming in the Pacific Northwest. Skylar clapped with the crowd, heat rising in her cheeks, and when Juniper stepped down, their paths converged at the signing table. "Loved the line about roots that strangle," Skylar said, sliding her copy forward. "Felt like you were writing my biography." Juniper's pen paused, eyes lifting with that spark of recognition. "Yeah? Well, your Bayou Ghost preview in the program, it's got me hooked. That altar scene? Gut punch." They talked then, words flowing like the gin, about small-town exiles, the pull of water as metaphor, bayous for Skylar, rivers for Juniper. The way coming out felt like shedding skin in stages. Juniper was a teacher at a community college, specializing in Indigenous lit, her own roots in Klamath Falls, where family ran deep but acceptance ran shallow. By midnight, the crowd thinned, and they spilled onto the street, umbrellas forgotten, shoulders brushing under the awning. "Walk with me?" Juniper asked, and Skylar nodded, the rain a soft veil between past and possibility. They wandered Burnside Bridge, city lights fracturing on the Willamette below, talking of everything and nothing. Favorite dive bars, the ache of holidays alone, the quiet thrill of a hand held in public without flinching. At Skylar's loft, The invitation hung unspoken until Juniper's fingers grazed hers on the doorstep. "I don't want the night to end," she murmured, and Skylar pulled her in, the door clicking shut like a vow renewed. They moved slow, exploratory, kisses tasting of gin and green apples, bodies mapping new territories with the reverence of survivors. Juniper's touch was gentle, questioning, alive with the curiosity of someone who'd learned love as a verb, not a cage. In the tangle of sheets, Skylar let go, whispers of names blending with the rain's rhythm, and for the first time since the church release felt like grace, not grief. Morning brought coffee and crepes, Juniper cross-legged on the floor, flipping through Skylar's sketches. "These women, they're you, aren't they? The one who stays and the one who flies." Skylar watched her, heart stuttering at the insight, the ease. Maybe. Or maybe they're what I wish I'd been, braver. They dated in fits and starts, the Portland way. Hikes in Forest Park where Ferns whispered approvals, poetry slams where Juniper read odes to river women and Skylar cheered loudest, quiet dinners at food carts where stories unfolded like napkins. Juniper knew fragments of the Monroe wreckage, enough to hold Skylar through nightmares where petals rained like accusations, but not the depths, not yet. Skylar guarded those, afraid the weight would drown what was blooming. But ghosts have long arms. 3 months in, a call from Lena in New Orleans. "Ilara's in town for a conference. Saw your name on a panel list. Thought you should know." Skylar's stomach knotted, the old scar itching fierce. The conference was queer lit, a convergence at the Superdome, irony thick as gumbo. Juniper noticed the tension, her hand squeezing Skylar's over breakfast. "Go if you need to. Face it or it faces you." Skylar went, flying solo, the Crescent City a siren call of memories. The panels buzzed with voices like hers, tales of forbidden glances in Bible Belt pews, anthems to reclaimed names. Then in the lobby, eyes locked across the crowd. Ilara, slimmer now, hair shorter, a lanyard proclaiming volunteer coordinator, Gulf Coast Queer Youth Alliance. No Monroe in sight, just that familiar tilt of head, sorrow etched deeper. "Skylar." Ilara approached, voice soft as Spanish moss. "You look good. Strong. You too." Truth, not kindness. Ilara's eyes held a clarity Skylar hadn't seen in years, unburdened. They found a corner cafe, beignets steaming between them, and words tumbled. Ilara's separation from Monroe after 4 months, the estate sale funding scholarships for queer kids, her new apartment in Baton Rouge where she lived unapologetically. "I was running from myself," she admitted, sugar dusting her lips. "Using her to stay safe. But you were the mirror I broke. I'm sorry doesn't cover it, but it's all I have." Skylar listened, the ache a dull throb now, not a stab. "I forgave you months ago. For me, not you." Holding the hate was heavier than the hurt. They parted with a hug, brief, sisterly, and Skylar wandered the quarter alone, jazz spilling from doorways, the air thick with possibility. Back in Portland, she told Juniper everything over wine on the balcony, the ring glinting like a full stop. Juniper listened, then pulled her close. "That scar makes you, but it doesn't own you. We're writing the next chapter." And they did, proposals under cherry blossoms, a commitment ceremony in a riverside clearing with friends bearing witness, no aisles or altars, just vows exchanged with the Willamettes choir. Skylar Hayes, once shattered in a vestibule, now whole in the arms of a woman who saw her fully, flaws and fire. Love, she learned, wasn't a transaction or a trap, but a current carrying you home to yourself. Winter clamped down on Portland like a jealous lover, snow dusting the bridges in reluctant white, turning the city into a hush of half-frozen secrets. Skylar and Juniper's life wove tighter, threads of routine and revelation. Mornings tangled in flannel sheets, Juniper's laugh echoing as she burned toast. Evenings at the drawing board where Skylar sketched while Juniper graded papers, their feet entwined under the table like roots seeking soil. Bayou Ghosts hit shelves that January, covers embossed with magnolia blooms cracked open to reveal hidden paths. Reviews praising its unflinching portrait of queer Southern survival. Signings drew crowds, women with stories mirroring Skylar's, eyes wet with shared scars, and each one chipped at the walls she'd built, letting light in where shadows once ruled. But peace, Skylar knew, was a fragile bloom, easily bruised by winds from the south. February brought a letter, forwarded from the Monroe house she'd never fully vacated. Ilara's handwriting, neat and tentative, enclosing a check for half the divorce settlement, proceeds from the estate's dispersal. Use it for your dreams, it read. The ones I dimmed. Skylar stared at the sum. Enough for a down payment on a studio in the Pearl District, her fingers tracing the ink as if it could summon explanations. Juniper found her there, cross-legged on the rug, and sat beside her without a word, waiting until Skylar's breath steadied. It's not guilt money, Skylar said finally, folding the check away. It's her way of closing the circle. Juniper nodded, her hand warm on Skylar's knee. Then let it build something new on old ground. They talked late into the night, Juniper sharing her own fracture. A high school girlfriend lost to conversion prayers in Klamath, the years of therapy unraveling the shame. We carry them, but we don't let them steer. Spring thawed the Willamette's edges, green shoots pushing through concrete cracks, mirroring the tentative growth in Skylar's chest. She used the money for the studio, a sunlit space above a bookstore, walls soon papered with sketches and Juniper's poems taped like talismans. Their ceremony lingered in memory, a circle of quartz and wildflowers by the river, vows spoken to the current. I choose you in the quiet and the storm, no chains, only hands held open. Friends toasted with ciders from local orchards, Lena flying in from New Orleans with stories of Alara's latest triumph. A youth center opening in Baton Rouge, funded by Voss remnants, Alara at the helm with a fire Skylar recognized as her own spark returned. Yet as cherry blossoms peaked, a shadow crept. Monroe Voss, emailing from an Atlanta address, subject unfinished business. Saw the book. Proud of you. Coffee. Neutral ground. Skylar's pulse spiked, old reflexes firing. Anger, curiosity, the masochistic pull of closure. Juniper read it over her shoulder, brow furrowed but voice even. Your call. But if you go, go for you, not her. They met in Seattle, a rainy May afternoon, Pike Place Market buzzing with tourists and fishmongers' calls, the waterfront a buffer of salt air. Monroe waited at a harbor cafe, unchanged in essence, cropped hair silvering at the temples, suit swapped for wool sweater and jeans, eyes holding that same unyielding depth. Hayes, she said, standing to hug, the embrace brief charged with history. Voss. Skylar slid into the booth, ordering tea to steady her hands. What brings the prodigal back? Regret tour. Monroe's laugh was rueful, stirring cream into her coffee. Something like, sold the last of the rigs, moved to consulting, clean energy, irony not lost. Alara. She's thriving without me. We were oil and water, thought we were fire. She paused, gaze dropping to the table. But you turned pain into art. That book? Gutted me in the best way. Made me see what I stole, not just from her but from us. The word hung. A bridge over the chasm of years. Skylar sipped her tea, the steam curling like ghosts. You didn't steal. You reminded me what I deserved to walk from. They talked for hours, the market's clamor fading to backdrop. Vanderbilt nights under frat house lights. Monroe's hand in hers at the first Pride March. The letter that severed it all. I chose fear, Monroe admitted, voice low. Daddy's empire over my heart. Thought it'd fade, but you lingered, like a song I couldn't unhear. Skylar listened, the old fury softened to empathy. A recognition of paths diverged. And now? Clean slate. Monroe nodded, sliding a slim volume across the table. Her own memoir, drilled dry, confessions of a Southern heiress reckoning with legacy's cost. For you. If it helps. Skylar took it, weight light but meaningful. It does. Thanks. They parted with a nod. No hugs this time. Just the quiet acknowledgement of survivors circling back to honor the dead. Flying home, Skylar cracked the book on the plane. Monroe's words a mirror to her own. Betrayals owned, freedoms claimed. Juniper met her at the gate. Arms open, and over dinner that night, Skylar shared it all. The release a deeper rooting. Summer swelled, Portland's roses rioting in planters, and with it came expansion. Skylar's novel shortlisted for the Lambda Literary Award. Juniper's essays picked up by a lit mag. They traveled. A road trip down the Oregon coast, dunes and driftwood under vast skies. Making love in a lighthouse keeper's cottage, the ocean's roar drowning doubts. Back home, whispers of family stirred. Skylar's mother, a rare call from Ohio, voice cracking over, proud of your book, Skybug. Sent a copy to Aunt Ruth, she don't get it but she reads. Then autumn again, leaves turning like pages. An invite arrived, Ilara's wedding, not to Monroe but to herself, a vow renewal solo in New Orleans, a public affirmation for the youth center. Come, the note read. Witness my becoming. Skylar showed Juniper hesitation flickering. Should I? Juniper kissed her temple. If it feels like ending, yes. If it feels like starting over, hell yes. They went together, the flight south a bridge over bayous. The ceremony was in Jackson Square. Under a canopy of lanterns, Ilara in linen simple as truth, surrounded by kids she'd mentored. Teens with signs reading love wins, no exceptions. Skylar stood in the crowd, Juniper's hand in hers, tears pricking as Ilara spoke. To the girl who taught me flight, and the one who caught me when I fell, thank you. Today I marry the life I choose, unapologetic. After over jambalaya in a courtyard cafe, Ilara hugged Skylar tight. You look happy. Truly. I am. And she was. The circle closed, not in loss but in layers of grace. Winter returned, softer now, snow falling like confetti on their first anniversary. Skylar proposed expansion. A joint project, graphic novel meets poetry, river to bayou. As they sketched by the fire, Juniper's head on her shoulder, Skylar knew. Betrayal had been the forge, society the anvil, but love, real chosen love, was the hammer shaping them whole. The Lambda Awards ceremony in New York hummed with the electricity of recognition, chandeliers dripping light over gowns and gratitude speeches, the air thick with perfume and possibility. Skylar Hayes sat at a corner table, Juniper's hand warm in hers under the linen, her nerves a low buzz beneath the tailored black dress she'd bought on a whim. Simple lines, no frills, just enough to feel like armor turned invitation. Bayou Ghosts was nominated for Best Lesbian Fiction. The cover projected on screens like a beacon, magnolias cracking to free shadowed figures entwined. When the winner was called, not hers but a debut from a trans author out of Chicago, Skylar clapped fiercest, the loss a gentle deflection, pride swelling for the shared fight. Juniper leaned in during the after-party, breath minty with champagne. You're glowing. Not just the lights. They danced then in the hotel ballroom, bodies swaying to a jazz quartet's rendition of At Last, the city outside a glittering apology for winters past. Back in their room, overlooking Times Square's chaos, they made love with the windows cracked, neon flickering like heartbeats, whispers of forever mingling with traffic horns below. Morning brought bagels and the New York Times, a review tucked in arts. Hayes' prose aches with authenticity, a southern queer odyssey that lingers like humidity on skin. Skylar read it aloud, voice catching on redemption, Juniper's eyes shining. Told you. The world's catching up. But catching up meant confronting too. A week post-ceremony, back in Portland's embrace, an email pinged from an unfamiliar domain. Harper Voss Literary Agency. Monroe's cousin, apparently, pitching representation for Skylar's next project. Monroe, mention your work. She's pivoting to producing indie films, queer stories. Thinks Bayou Ghosts has screen potential. Skylar's thumb hovered over delete, but curiosity won. She replied, cautious, scheduling a call. The conversation flowed easy, Harper's Brooklyn accent sharp as a storyboard. Budgets for adaptations, festivals like Sundance hungry for tales like Skylar's. Monroe's hands off, Harper assured. Just a believer now. Skylar hung up intrigued, the idea of her words on screen. A visual elegy to petals and promises. A spark in the dry tinder of her ambitions. She shared it with Juniper over pho in a Hawthorne strip mall. Steam rising like confessions. Feels like closing a loop. Without reopening the wound. Juniper slurped noodles, thoughtful. As long as it's yours. Not hers. Production talks accelerated, Monroe entering the frame peripherally. A congratulatory note, knew you'd soar, no strings. Skylar met her once more in LA for a pitch meeting, coffee at a Sunset Strip cafe where palms swayed like indifferent witnesses. Monroe looked lighter, lines softened by therapy and time, her pitch for the film a blueprint of respect. Skylar as executive producer, creative control ironclad. This is amends, Monroe said, eyes steady. Not ownership. Skylar nodded, the old pull absent, replaced by collegial warmth. Appreciated. Let's make it good. Filming loomed that summer, location scouted in Louisiana. Monroe's Bayou standing in for authenticity, Elara consulting on dialects and details, her youth center kids as extras for a festival scene. Skylar flew down with Juniper, the heat a humid hug, cicadas chorusing welcomes. On set, amid the church replica's scaffolding, Skylar directed the altar confrontation, her voice steady. More ache in the eyes, betrayal isn't loud, it's the silence after. Monroe watched from the sidelines, nodding approval. Their shared glances bridges built of mutual mending. Offset, evenings unfolded in New Orleans' lap. Beignet with Elara at Café du Monde, her stories of the center's triumphs, scholarships awarded, closets emptied. Your books in every waiting room, Elara said one twilight, riverboats chugging past. Kids come out because they see themselves in it. Juniper bonded easy, her indigenous lens adding depth to set talks, and the three women, Skylar, Elara, Monroe, shared a meal one night, laughter tentative at first, then free, toasting to fractures that forged. Fall-wrapped production, dailies raw with emotion, and Skylar returned to Portland renewed, the film of Phoenix from Ashes. Premiere buzz built, Sundance acceptance, January slot, and with it, personal tides shifted. Juniper's tenure track offer at Reed College, talks of a house in Selwood with a garden for sketching and salvia. But December brought a squall. Skylar's mother, ill in Ohio, pneumonia gripping her lungs like old regrets. Skylar flew east alone, Juniper's go, heal what you can echoing. The hospital room smelled of antiseptic and apologies unspoken. Her mother frail in the bed, eyes, Skylar's eyes, flickering with unsaid I'm sorries. Read your book, she rasped, hand clutching the worn paperback. Didn't know how heavy it was. Skylar sat vigil, stories spilling. Monroe's fire, Elara's grace, the church's echo. It was heavy for you too, she said, squeezing fingers thin as paper. Hiding me to fit. Tears tracked her mother's cheeks. Thought I was protecting. Now I see love don't hide. They talked through nights, mending in murmurs, and when Skylar left, it was with a hug tighter than years allowed, a promise to return. Spring bloomed with Sundance, the film petal fall unspooling to standing ovations in Park City snow, critics hailing its lyrical gut punch on queer resilience. Skylar, Juniper at her side in velvet and boots, accepted the audience award, speech simple. To the women who broke me and built me back. This is ours. After party buzz, deals whispered, but Skylar slipped away with Juniper to a hot spring soak, steam rising like released breaths. What's next? Juniper asked, head on Skylar's shoulder. Us, Skylar murmured. Always. Summer saw the house purchase, walls painted sage and sky. A studio shed for dual dreams. Elara visited, bearing pralines and plans for a Gulf tour. Monroe emailed scripts for collab. Skylar's mother recovered, letters arriving scented with Rust Belt resolve. Proud Skybug. Come home soon. As leaves turned once more, Skylar stood in the garden, sketching Juniper amid sunflowers, the ring on her finger a circle unbroken. Society's standards had bent her, but love, fierce chosen, had straightened her spine. The story wasn't over. It unfolded page by petal in the light she claimed. The Selwood house settled around them like a well-worn coat, creaks in the floorboards a lullaby, the garden a riot of black-eyed Susans and heirloom tomatoes that Juniper tended with the patience of a poet. Skylar Hayes thrived in the rhythm. Mornings at the shed studio, pencils dancing over panels for River to Bayou. Their hybrid tale where a Klamath River spirit met a Louisiana specter, love's crossing waters to defy drownings. Afternoons bled into Juniper's office hours, Skylar dropping by with coffees and stolen kisses. Evenings folding into dinners where recipes from Elara's care packages mingled with Juniper's wild rice pilafs. Petal Falls released that October rippled wide, streaming numbers climbing. Talk of Emmys for the score. A haunting blend of fiddle and synth evoking Bayou nights. Skylar fielded interviews from Brooklyn lofts and Ella patios, her voice steady. It's not autobiography, it's anthem, for every queer kid staring down an aisle of judgment. Fan mail poured in, envelopes fat with drawings from teens in Texas towns, essays from elders in Vermont villages, all echoing the universal ache of loving against the grain. Monroe called one crisp afternoon, voice crackling over the line from Atlanta. Festival circuits buzzing. Got an offer for a sequel, your call. Skylar glanced at Juniper, weeding the herb bed, and smiled. Maybe. But first, this life. Monroe chuckled, understanding. Fair. Alara says hi. She's spearheading a lit fest in Baton Rouge. Invited us. The invite tugged, a thread to old wounds now woven into tapestry. They went in November, Portland's chill traded for Louisiana's velvet dusk. The fest a whirlwind of panels and poets in the capital's shadow. Alara greeted them at the airport, hug fierce, her laugh brighter, unshadowed. You too, it's poetry, she said, driving them to her apartment, a shotgun conversion bursting with books and batik throws. The fest unfolded in the old state capital's Gothic glow, Skylar and Juniper moderating a youth panel on reclaiming narratives, voices raw with stories of church exiles and family fractures. Alara read from her own chapbook, Unveiled, verses of solo vows and collective risings, the crowd's applause a wave-crashing approval. Monroe arrived midweek, suitcases stuffed with scripts, joining a screenwriting workshop where her clean energy pivot inspired talks on sustainable stories. Dinners post-events were communal. Crawfish boils on river levees, laughter looping with lightning bugs, the four women orbiting easy, histories harmonized into harmony. One night after a reading where Skylar shared Bayou Ghost's epilogue, a heroine choosing self over silence, Alara pulled her aside on the balcony, city lights twinkling below. Seeing you with her. It's what I wished for us. Unfettered. Skylar squeezed her hand, Ghost gentle now. You found your unfettered. That's enough. December whisked them home, holidays a blend. Portland's lights with Juniper's family via video, Ohio for Skylar's mother, now walking with a cane carved by a neighbor woodworker, her shelves lined with queer-lit loans from the library. Ruth's reading too, she confided over lax, eyes twinkling. Says it's enlightening. New Year dawned with snow and sequels. Petal Fall greenlit for a limited series, Skylar scripting episodes from the shed, Juniper's poems threading the dialogue like veins. Spring brought a surprise, Juniper's positive test, a quiet clinic visit confirming the IUI's success, their dream of family taking root. A little river sprite, Juniper whispered, hand on belly, Skylar's tears salt on their kiss. Pregnancy wove wonder into routines. Ultrasounds like sonnets read aloud, cravings for Portland donuts and Baton Rouge boudin. Juniper's glow rivaling the garden's peonies. Skylar fretted quietly, shadows of loss whispering, what if you're not enough? But Juniper anchored, her hand guiding Skylar's to the flutter. We're enough. Together. Summer swelled with the belly. River to Bayou launching to acclaim. Launches in Seattle and San Francisco where fans queued with belly pats and blessing beads. Alara flew west for the birth, August heatwave breaking with the arrival of Riley Hayes-Reed. Red-haired whaler with Juniper's eyes and Skylar's cry, tiny fists clutching like she'd fight the world already. Fall cradled them, Riley's coos a soundtrack to sketches and sonnets, the house alive with milk scent and midnight feeds. Monroe visited, bearing a mobile of magnolia leaves and fireflies, her eyes soft at the cradle. Aunt Monroe, she joked, and Skylar laughed, the title fitting like an old glove resized. One evening as leaves pirouette past the window, Skylar rocked Riley, Juniper dozing nearby, and felt the arc complete. From vestibule shadows to nursery glow, society's ma met and matched. Betrayal had been the bitter seed, but from it grew this, love's quiet revolution, human in its mess, profound in its persistence. Riley's first winter arrived on tiptoe, Portland's snow a feather blanket over the Selwood streets, muffling the world's clamor to a hush perfect for lullabies. Skylar Hayes watched her daughter from the rocker, tiny chest rising in sleep's tide, auburn wisps curling like promises against the knit cap Juniper had crocheted during those long third trimester nights. Motherhood had reshaped them. Skylar's sketches now doodled with chubby cheeks and grasping hands, Juniper's poems swelling with milk and metaphor, their love a deeper current, carved by the miracle of this small life. The Petal Fall series premiered that January, episodes dropping like petals on streaming waves, critics crowning it a masterclass in queer catharsis. Skylar hosted a watch party in the living room, Alara and Monroe video calling from Baton Rouge, where Alara's center had expanded to a full arts wing. Murals by queer youth splashed across walls like defiant rainbows. You captured it, Alara texted mid-episode. the altar scene flickering on screens nationwide. The break and the bloom. Viewership surged, panels beckoning from coasts to heartlands, but Skylar chose selective. A TEDx in Austin on storytelling as survival, where she spoke to a hall of wide-eyed students. We write not to erase the pain, but to etch it into legacy. To say yes, we loved fiercely against the tide and emerged. Juniper beamed from the front row, Riley gurgling in a carrier, the applause a thunder that echoed her own quiet triumphs. Spring unfurled with Riley's first steps, wobbly toward the garden where black-eyed Susans nodded encouragement, Juniper filming with tears blurring the lens. Skylar's mother visited then, flying from Ohio with suitcases stuffed with pierogies and a quilt stitched with family lore, threads of Rust Belt resilience now embroidered with Portland pines. She held Riley like fragile porcelain, singing Polish folk tunes soft as snowfall, and over teas in the kitchen confessed more. Your father, he struggled, Sky. With you with us. But he loved quiet like you. Healing layered like sediment, Skylar's calls home lengthening. Bridges rebuilt in laughter and lament. Monroe's production company greenlit River to Bayou for adaptation. Her role producer emeritus, stepping back for fresh voices. Your family's the story now, she emailed, attaching tickets to a jazz fest in New Orleans. They went, Riley in a papoose, the music a cradle sway under oaks, Alara joining with her partner, a soft-spoken librarian named Thea, their hands linked casual as breathing. Summer baked the bayous golden. Riley's babbles blending with brass bands, Skylar tracing old paths with new eyes. The church in Monroe a relic now, its steeple leaning like a confession. They picnicked on the Voss grounds preserved as a heritage park, magnolia's shading tails swapped. Monroe's Atlanta life, consulting for green initiatives. Alara's wedding to Thea, small and sunlit, vows echoing Skylar's own riverside words. Fall harvested abundance, River to Bayou book tour wrapping in Vermont's fiery foliage, Skylar reading to crowds in Burlington barns, Juniper's essays collected into current songs, Riley's photo on the dedication page. Back home, a letter arrived from an Ohio high school. Drama club mounting Petal Fall as a play, invitation to opening night. Skylar went, Juniper and Riley in tow, the stage a mirror to her youth. Teens channeling the ache with raw grace, curtain call hugs tear-streaked. Winter circled again. Riley's second birthday a flurry of frosting and friends, the house aglow with candles counting graces. Skylar stood on the porch that solstice eve, snowflakes kissing her lashes, Juniper inside strumming guitar to Riley's sleepy hum. The years replayed like film reels. The business trips unraveling, petals on oak, hands held in defiance. Society's standards, gossip in Monroe pews, Ohio mill whispers, had tested, torn but yielded to the human truth. Love's not a line drawn in clay, but a river carving canyons persistent, profound. She stepped inside, arms finding Juniper. Riley's soft breaths the heartbeat beneath. What are you thinking? Juniper murmured, chin on Skylar's shoulder. Us, Skylar whispered, the word encompassing all. The betrayals born, freedoms forged, family flowered. And the stories we'll tell her. In the quiet with snow sealing the world soft, Skylar knew the ending. Not a fade to black, but an open frame light spilling endless, inviting the next breath, the next bend.